Are a little bit late, but we are here. Hello, everybody, on this beautiful sunny day. Apologies, I'm a few minutes late. That's just because we were chatting. And you know what? It's a Saturday, so I think we can be a little bit lazy. So, a huge welcome to Mags Boland Murphy of Bofin Consultancy. And I thank you so much for joining me today. I've known Mags for a couple of years now, I think, and I've done some work with Mags, and I can tell you she is super passionate and very driven and a great person to work with. You bring a lot of passion to your work, which is wonderful. And Mags is a marketing guru and all things business growth and business success. And so, Mags, I'm delighted to have you on and be another one of my guinea pigs who has no idea where this is going to go, because I don't know where it's going to go. So if I don't know, you don't know. So tell me a little bit about fear and how it has shown up for you in your life.
Okay, thanks for having me, Tracy, and I'm happy to be involved in this. I think it's a great initiative, by the way. I think I like things that are a bit innovative, positive, thinking outside the box. Fear it's been in my life in different ways, I guess. And I think there's no kind of standard list of fear. Everyone's different, so everybody has different fears. For me, a lot of fear around my health from time to time. And I guess making big decisions and taking leaps of faith and the following your gut when people around you telling you you're half cracked and maybe you're not doing it the way they think you should be doing it. That's okay though, that's okay. Fear of the unknown. I started the business in a recession and now we're in the middle of really another one. And we've got a lot of fear out there at the minute with people personally, because there's a high level of unemployment now. People are worrying about how they're going to meet their bills and their needs and how they're going to put food on the table. And they're the basic things. And then you have fear of business. Businesses are under incredible stress at the moment, down to fear. They've no certainty at the minute. The certainty that's out there is very, very slim on the ground. And then, there's personal fears like I hate heights. I hate bacon and cabbage.
But are you afraid of bacon and cabbage?
Oh, I am. I can't be in the room when it's being cooked. Yeah. So, down to those things. Fatty meat makes my skin crawl. Okay. So, yeah, eggs.
A little bit weird, by the way.
So, eggs on a plate, I don't like that. So there's different types of fear, Through my life, I've had, I suppose the biggest fear I've ever had was when I was pregnant with my daughter, because it was risky for me. So, I was taken in an emergency situation, 3 minutes they had to get us in and out safe, and that was it. And I remember signing that form going in, and I was out of my head on drugs, as you would be when you're, in that situation in maternity. And I knew with the panic that was going on around me that there was nothing I could do about it. And I had
to share with people why your pregnancy was risky.
Yeah, sure, why not? I'm kind of very open about it anyway. I have endometriosis. For those of you that don't know what that is a condition in the lining of your uterus, and it is incredibly painful. I've had it since I was a teenager. My mum had it. So it makes the likelihood of having children, your likelihood is decreased, basically. And then I have type 1 diabetes, which again has its own struggles when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
So I was high risk case, and I remember when I was at work, I was working I had a very, very high level management job, and I was carrying a large workload as well. And I'd be quite defiant as well. I wouldn't let anything stop me doing what I needed to do in life. I never have. But that was the most fearful time of my life, I think. I wanted to get through that. And I lost a twin. So my daughter was a twin. Yeah, so that it was great. I'm very lucky.
That has to be hard, you know. I mean, pregnancy is hard enough at the best of times, but when you have that length of time, when you have the loss to deal with, you know, losing one of your babies, and then the fear of what's going to happen. So, I mean, I'm sure that brought a lot of stress for you throughout the term of the pregnancy.
Yeah, it did. I learned a lot of lessons through it, I can tell you.
How did you find any techniques to manage that so that you could, because obviously it's counterproductive. I mean, you don't want to be. I remember going in for a checkup when I was towards the end of my pregnancy with Amelia. And at this point I was like, I am so over this. Get this bloody baby out of me now. So I had a plan in my head for what I wanted to do, but I felt that I was going to have to fight for it. And I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this. So by the time I went in, my blood pressure was really high, which it never is.
Me too.
And that was only in about 5 minutes of, you know, I suppose, fear-based kind of angry thinking. Now, once I told them what I wanted, and they were like, oh, yeah, that's no problem. I was like, oh, okay, grand. And I just went, okay, give me 2 minutes. And they took it again, and it was fine. But, you know, how did you manage that fear?
Well, I remember my mum said to me, she's just a legend lady. She said to me, because I was afraid, I didn't know what to expect as well, you know. And she said to me, Mags, the pain isn't going to be any worse than your endo. And when I started having contractions and whatever, they couldn't understand why I wouldn't take a paracetamol, or, you know, I was able to manage it because I'm managing crazy pain every month. So so that was good. But I had in my head, like you, I was like, right, I want to do it this way. But like I say, in business and in life, no plan survives contact. And, you know, I just let Mother Nature take over, because, you know, when your life is in the balance and that of your baby's in the balance, it's a different set of, it's a different level playing field, you know. I was incredibly immobile after it. I was in ICU for a long time afterwards. So, you know, it really taught me that self-care is so important. And I did a video this week about that, because, you know, we're working, we're so busy at the minute, and it's supporting businesses through challenge and change. And that's really supporting the individuals as well through challenge and change. And there's a lot of fear out there, and there's a lot of stress. And, you know, fear brings stress. And what I've tried to learn, like growing up, I was an awful worrier. So what I've tried to do is accept that there are things we cannot change, you know, and the pandemic is one of those. So, you know, we have to do what we can during this time. But yeah, I mean, I'd be very concerned for a lot of people's mental health at the moment, and mental well-being around fear of what tomorrow and beyond COVID is going to bring. So, you know, I kind of always go back to that stage when I had Freya, and I go, right, I got through that, I can get through anything, you know. So
yeah, and I mean, it must have taught you a lot in terms of, you know, what's important.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I am well able to say no now.
Yeah.
And I think my physical health, I am so, like, I couldn't, you know, I was very immobile for a while, and to me that was like, you know, I wasn't independent for a while. We had to move in with my mum and dad because my husband's job was taking him away. So I needed someone with me 24/7, and I'll be forever grateful to my mum for that time. As I was having, you know, different hypo attacks as a diabetic and that, and trying to get back to some kind of normality. And then I had the fear around, you know, how am I going to juggle work, baby? We were about to move to another part of the country that I didn't know anything about, really. So I was thinking, Jesus, you know, so there was different levels of fear then. And then, of course, there was the fear of opening the business. And
yeah. And, you know, one of the things that I suppose that I work with people a lot, and with myself in terms of my own growth, is that when I look back at all of the things that I was, you know, fearful of or nervous of or anxious of, or how will this work out, is that when I look back, it's like, God, everything worked out for me. Everything is figure outable. And, you know, what was the point of all of that fear-based thinking when the solutions to all of the questions, or the solutions to all of the problems they all just presented themselves. And they probably would have presented themselves an awful lot quicker if I had given them the space to do that. And the space would come from not getting caught in that fear thinking. And I guess, have you noticed, or how are you in terms of trusting that innate wisdom within you, that you know that in a situation like this, you know that you will figure it out?
I think you have to trust your gut. Like, you know, my dad used to say to me, "You have great intuition, Max." And I do. I trust my intuition. I'm very good at, you know, judging a person, not judging them in a bad way, but I have the measure of someone very quickly. I'm also, you know, I know if a situation is bad. It's like recently there was a situation with a business that there was something untoward going on. I flagged it. I could have, like, it could have gone either way. But thankfully I flagged it, because the business would have been in serious trouble if it hadn't been flagged. And the owners weren't aware of it. I think you have to trust that something is either wrong or right for you, whether that's personally, professionally, it doesn't matter. But I always kind of, you know, the one thing I always say to people, go with your gut.
Like, how do you hear your gut? How does it, because I do know that a lot of people, you know, for them, it's, how do I know it's intuitive thinking versus brain thinking? Because they are very different. So how
very different.
Tune into it.
I'd be very open to energy, right? Now, that might sound a bit airy.
No, listen, I love the fairies. I'm completely away with the fairies.
God bless the fairies, right?
The fairies.
They're rocking their socks, right?
Yeah.
But I think, like, you know, I'd say to my daughter, and she's 9, I'd say to her, "Well, Freya, how do you feel about it? What do you think?" You know? And I teach her, and my husband as well, is to make her own decisions. Now, unless it's incredibly wrong, you know, to kind of make that judgment call herself. Because, you know, as a child and growing up, you're faced with different challenges and different situations that, you know, you have to kind of be open to what's around you. And it's funny, if I get a bad feeling off somebody, reverse, you know, or a situation. And if I know something, like, for instance, somebody said to me a number of years ago, "Mags, you know, you're not going to last in business if you're nice to people." And this was me now, I was only starting out. And I kind of said to myself, right, you're the wrong person to deal with. For me, not for, they're the right fit for somebody else, but not for me. Because, you know, I'm a good person, that's fine. And I'm not going to compromise my principles or my own ethos or beliefs, you know, for the greater good of money, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be honest with people. I'm also very straight talking. Don't get me wrong. I run a business, not a charitable organization. You know, but you can get that balance right. You don't have to compromise yourself and be this perceived, acceptable, suited and booted persona. You know, I'm reading a book at the minute, and it's really interesting. It's written by Ant Middleton, who's one of the ex-special forces, who's running a program for the BBC at the minute. And he says that, you know, when you're in work, but you can be yourself as well once you switch off. You know, you can be yourself in work as well. You know, you don't have to be a different person completely. You know what I mean? And I think
I do. And I agree with you so much, because I see, and I think, you know, when clients come to me and, you know, they're talking about, well, this is the problem, and this is the problem, and these are the circumstances. And it's like, well, that's just a story, you know, and we all have a story. but what's going on with you? And one of the words that comes up a lot is disconnect, that they feel disconnected with themselves. And that comes through a lack of authenticity and not even knowing yourself. And when you're trying to be a round peg in a square hole, that gets really, really painful and uncomfortable. And you don't know yourself. And I think that the reason that you are intuitive, because we're all intuitive, and the reason that you know is because you know yourself and you trust yourself and you are yourself. And for a lot of people, the disconnect is they don't hear that anymore, or they don't know where that thought is coming from, or is it a real thought, or is it just me making stuff up in my head? And that's where a lot of their pain comes from.
And the other thing as well is, I think people have to realize this: we're not all the same. If we were, Jesus, the world would be so boring, you know.
Yeah, Stepford Wives, we are robots.
I definitely wouldn't fit into that picture anyway. I can tell you that for nothing. Yeah. But I think you really have to kind of own your own space and own who you are as well. Don't be ashamed of it. When I started the business, I remember something that took me a while to figure out. Even though I have been in the corporate world and the business world all my working life, I was always myself, right? And I remember a really, really good client of mine years ago said to me, Mags, you'll go far if you stay true to yourself. And I now know what they meant. And I think, I mean, the girls who work for me and my clients, hopefully, will tell you that, like, what you see is what you get with me. You know, I am a bit quirky. I do like to have the crack because life is too serious. It's serious enough. But likewise, time and money are valuable commodities and they're too valuable to be wasted. So we do work really hard. And at the minute, we are full, you know, and it's a great complaint, but we have to be mindful that we need to deliver quality as well over quantity. I think the fear piece for me, sorry, going back to what we said, you're right, we go off on tangents in this one, but the fear piece for me in business, Tracy, was, I suppose, what are people going to think? You know, how are they going to, you know, what are they going to say? And then I thought to myself, for God's sake, Max, you know, and I knew, like, people will talk about you regardless. You know, that's...
Listen, you know, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
No. And you just got to accept that as just a fact of life. And that's... I just want to show you something. I think I have it here. My dad gave me a book years ago. And he's the only person in my family that actually did any kind of work that was relative to what I do, and kind of understood. He understood what I did. I didn't have to explain it to him. And this is a book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff by Richard Carlson. And every so often I dip in and out to it. And because Dad gave it to me as well, it's got a little special spot, you know. But I think that's what we have to realize, that all the big things in our life are made up of small things. And the small things matter, but we don't need to worry about them. We really don't need to worry about them, because what's going to change, you know? Now, in saying that, I will always worry about one or two things, but, you know, we're only human. But yeah, I think worry and fear do stress people out. And when I was starting the business, I'd done a lot of freelance work over the years. But when I was full-time employed, but then having my daughter, we had to move to the other side of the country. And that was the only option for us at the time, and due to my husband's work and that. But that was my opportunity to bite the bullet and to do what I'd always wanted to do. Since I was a kid, I always wanted to have my own business, and I didn't quite know how I was going to get there. And I had no definitive path or plan. And I certainly wasn't, coming out of school, I wasn't your ideal business owner or academic.
What is, that's the thing, is what is the ideal? Does it even exist, you know?
Yeah. Had this conversation actually with a business owner client of ours during the week. They run an amazing business and they're very successful. And they said to me, Max, this was a guy who's been running a business for over 20 years. And he said, but Max, I have no qualification. I don't have the business acumen. I said, well, you have something because you're running a really successful business for 20 years. So you're doing something right. So I think if you, and I really, really believe this, if you really want something in life, if you want to win in a sport, if you want to excel in a personal piece, if you want to write that book like you're writing, Tracy, if you want to do something, if you really want to do it and it's in here, you can do it.
Yeah.
If you do it, I'm going to do it.
And I think it's just do it. Like, you know, it might be that you do it and it didn't turn out the way that you wanted to be, but like, because I know with this book, I'd been talking about it since kind of last year, and I know I was procrastinating a bit because it's like, well, what if this, and what if nobody likes it, and what if and then I just thought, look, it's in here and it needs to come out. Who cares what happens at the other end? Just do it. And you know, I think when we attach meanings to end outcomes and it has to look a certain way, and if I can't be guaranteed that it's going to look a certain way, and I do see that this is going to be a big block for a lot of businesses out there, because people are going to have to change. They're going to have to do different things than what they did. And guess what? You're not going to know what the outcome is going to be. But if you allow that to get in the way of trying something, that's actually far more dangerous than trying something and it not working out. We should just be willing to just give it a go and have fun with things. And
my dad had a line he used to say, and he was very straight talk, whatever, but me being straight talking, Dad would talk you straight. But he used to say, "Feck the begrudgers and do it anyway."
Yeah.
And you know, and he said to me when I was starting the business, Max, there's always going to be people that'll be ready to pull you down. And it's true. There always is. You know, that's true. But I think what you need to do is ask yourself, especially with businesses, what happens if you stay the same?
Yes.
What happens if you don't adapt?
Yes.
What happens if you don't move with the times? You know, and that's something that a lot of business owners that were very slow to change are now being sent to us, actually. And we're seeing that. And look, it's not a bad thing. It's just, you know, businesses have habits. People have habits. And it's very difficult, even for us personally, to change those habits. At the moment, I'll tell you, a couple of weeks while this pandemic was going on, I would work morning, noon, and night if I got away with it. But it's not a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said to myself, right, I want to be in bed now by 10 o'clock every night. And I'm a night owl, so it's an extra challenge. Okay. And I'm doing that. And it's making such a difference. But it takes time to get into that habit of, you know, right, you've got to make a little plan. What do I need to do that? So I need to set my alarm and be strict with myself and get up the stairs, get into the bed at 10 o'clock, be in there, you sleep by 10:30, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's the same with business. You've got to allow yourself to change. You've got to allow yourself time. It's not a magic wand. You know, I've had conversations with people. There's one client at the moment, a big client of ours at the minute, and we're working on a project with them. And one of the directors said to me, Max, you know, we need sales now. We need them now. And I said, well, that's not going to happen. And if that's what you want, I'm the wrong person, because I don't do short fixes. Short fixes only last for a short length of time.
Yeah.
It's all about longevity and sustainability.
Exactly. And it's the same even with me as coaching. You know, if somebody comes to me and they're like, oh, what'll I do with this problem? Or what'll I do with that problem? It's like, look, I can give you a fish and you'll eat for a day, or I can teach you how to fish and you will eat for life. And for me, it's about, let's go above the problem. Let's go to what your thinking is about the problem and let's work that. And actually, often the problem just disappears all by itself. But it is that, you know, like, teach a man how to fish and he will eat for life. And I think we get really impatient. I know I used to be so impatient. It's like, yeah, I want it now. Give it to me now, no. But like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. And when you can lean into the unknown, I heard a great quote from Maurice, who I interviewed during the week, and it was that there's always more in the unknown than there is in the known. And right now we're in the unknown, and if we can actually, to be fair, we were always in the unknown. It's just that we didn't know we were in the unknown, and we thought we had control over things, but we never did. That was just things were flowing at the time, and now they're flowing differently. So the unknown is just far more obvious. I think the unknown was just camouflaged prior to the way things are right now, but it's just lean into the unknown, And
I think as well, Tracy, that this is a time of learning. Okay, I would be very positive, right, most of the time. I'm also very practical and realistic, but I would always try and see the good in everything, and and also identify the problems too, and say, look, we need to sort this out, but we can do this, And I think that you need to have that outlook at the minute. The other thing as well is it's completely out of our hands. And businesses, this is just part of the world cycle. I think globally, and particularly in Ireland, we are very good at adapting. We are very strong, and we will come out of this a lot smarter, I think, than we were.
We're like a better version of the Borg. And if anybody's not a Trek nerd, they were, we will adapt. They weren't very nice, though. We're a nicer version of the Borg. We will adapt.
A way nicer version of the Borg, Tracy. My husband is big into all that stuff. I'm familiar with what you're talking about. So I think you do need to kind of just go easy on yourself, be kind to yourself. Even myself, myself and Jenny, who works for me, we had to talk the other day on the phone and go, right, what can we do now with the schedule? And we've had to turn down pieces of work because we just physically can't take them on at the minute. But also what we're doing is we're making changes to the business online and offline, because we're not perfect. Our focus is on helping clients to challenge and change in their business, and helping them to plan and package and profit proficiently. But that's not going to happen overnight. And I think at the minute we have to stop putting pressure on ourselves to be, as people, to be selling. We need to be supporting and developing right now. Giving support, showing support, and developing what we have around us. One of the key things that I think helps me is the people I surround myself with in business and personally, but in business is definitely different from personal, because none of my close friends run businesses. So, I have one or two friends that do, I suppose, but none of my really close crew run businesses. So, it's nice to be able to pick up the phone or I need to do this like anyone else, to connect with people. And a lot of people have been ringing me since this started and saying, Mags, how are you finding it? What's the talk on the ground in our sector? What do you think is going to happen? How are you dealing with it? And it's nice to have that. But the people that you're surrounded with are your business tribe, right? Some of them may turn into your friends. Some of mine have turned into good friends. But they're your business tribe, your work tribe. And make sure, I suppose, the one thing I would say is quality over quantity. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people at home, and I grew up with a lot of people, and I'd be very social. But my real friends, there's a small crew.
Yeah.
So it's quality over quantity. And, to have somebody that you can pick the phone up to and just honestly talk about your personal stuff on one side, but then have someone on the other side that you can pick up the phone to, that you can actually talk your business with.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people that, are related to me or my family would ask me, what exactly do you do, Max? And sometimes it's great for a discussion. Other times, they may not understand it, so.
And it is, especially when you are in business, but I do think for every aspect of life, that when we don't allow ourselves to ask for help, when we think that we need to figure it all out, because I would be very much, I don't need to figure it all out myself, and not anymore. I'm a recovered need to fix it all myself, or it makes everything so much harder, and we don't know all the answers, and sometimes we do get stuck, and there's areas of business where you'll be good at, and there's areas in business that you won't be so good at. So, and it's great to get a different perspective, and I do think that's a really healthy, it's really healthy, and it's really important that you kind of, because it is, you're being vulnerable by doing that. You really have to remove ego out of the way in order to say, look, I'm struggling a little bit here. I'm stuck here. Can you see things from a different perspective, or what would you advise? And it is so important. And I do think that for a lot of people, especially solopreneurs, this is a big area that they failing, I don't like the word fail, but it's a big problem. It's a big stumbling block for them. It holds them back, not being able to say, yeah, I'm stuck, please help.
They think that's going to be seen as failure.
Yes.
But the one thing that I would say to solopreneurs as well, right, because that's how I started out, is that the people who are going to judge you, for the most part, are the ones that will never try anyway. So, you kind of have to row your own boat, and it can be a very lonely spot, let me tell you. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to say something, Tracy, and this is something that I feel strongly about at the moment, is the mental health and the stress that is out there at the minute among business owners. It's incredibly crazy. And it's not easily understandable unless you've been in business or you are in business. They're worrying about cash flow. They're worrying about their staff. They're worrying about how they're going to meet their own livelihood bills that they need to meet. They're worrying about what they're going to do tomorrow, what they're going to do in September. So there's a lot of stress out there. Mm-hmm. And I think there is support there. But what I'd encourage anybody who is on their own in their business is to don't be too proud to go and look for help and say, listen, I really need to dig out here. Or can I talk to somebody? There's lots of good networks out there, and there's lots of good people out there as well that will be happy to talk and happy to help and support. And I mean that, there's loads of networks around the country. There's a lot of the Women in Business networks. There's the Women Inspire network. There's the Network Ireland crew. There's BNI. There's loads of networks out there. And, it's just a question of don't be on your own, because you're not.
Exactly. And this is something we really, really need to break the cycle of, is sitting with our thoughts and, and just it's like it's a bad habit of, oh, well, I've never done that before, so I'm not going to do it now. And I would second that. And, and I've always said, if anybody ever wants to reach out and have a conversation with me, I'm always here. I'm always at the end of a phone or a Zoom call. Just say hi and say, can we talk?
Talking to Tracy, let me tell you. But I have to say as well, right, that we're not, in Ireland, we're very bad at expressing ourselves, expressing our feelings. We're getting better, but I wish to God, in some respect, right, and I'm not overly religious, but I wish to God that in school they would teach you two things outside of the academics: enterprise and self-care.
Emotional intelligence, yeah.
Because there isn't, I see it in the Scandinavian countries, they're much better at that piece. And I just think that that's why they have the work-life balance.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And look at it, and I know it is, like, in a lot of cases, it's the vocabulary. People don't have the vocabulary to express the feeling. And, you see it with kids. That's why toddlers throw tantrums, because they can't verbally express themselves. But you know what? With adults, it often doesn't change. They don't have the vocabulary to express, I have a feeling, or I just know that there's something not right. And so often when I put something, they're like, yeah, actually, that makes loads of sense, but they wouldn't have thought of the words before. And it is, and you are spot on. It's one of the greatest gifts that we can actually give to our children is to help them in terms of their emotional intelligence. That said, it has to come from the parents down, because I've had parents ask me if they could send their kids to, will you talk to my teenager for some coaching? And I always ask them, well, have you had coaching? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, well, then why are you asking your child to do something you're not willing to do for yourself? You know? So, and I know on a personal level myself that when I invested in me and invested in my development and my growth, that is just rippling out to my kids. And my daughter, like, I hear her saying things back to me, because she'd be coming in upset and she's like, oh, that's just a thought. And I'm like, oh my God, where's she getting this wisdom from, And like, it genuinely, I see it so coming through so much. I'm like, oh man, I never had this when I was your age. What are you going to be able to do?
And I think we had a discussion here the other day with my daughter, and she's a ticket. But she said to me, Mommy, sometimes I just get stressed and it gets like a ball up in my tummy. And I was like, and how does that make you feel? And what do you like to do? What helps? And she goes, walks and playing with the dogs. And I was like, right. But the fact that she was able to recognize that, and verbalize it for me, because I know going back to when I was a kid, I was extremely shy. I was bullied in school, and I kept all that stuff inside. And I never wanted that for my kids. I always want them, and she can literally say anything to myself and my husband, and that's the kind of environment we always wanted for her, that she can speak her mind, and there's within reason, obviously, but that she can, she can verbalize her emotions and she can think for herself. I think that's a life skill. That is, I was asked recently, Mags, in an interview actually, what would you think is what are the best life skills you can give any young person? Because I do a lot of work, pro bono, voluntary support work around supporting schools and going in and talking to students at senior level about their future, about what you can achieve and all that. And the two things I said was to this person was, well, first of all, belief in yourself, because that turns into sales ability later in life. And if you can sell, and if you have a belief in yourself, not in a cocky or arrogant way, but if you can do that, you'll always have money in your pocket, food on the table. The second thing I said was that to manage your own emotions, because if you can do that, you can manage stress when it happens. And stress happens. Stress is going to happen in different ways. It's not always down to sad or bad events. Stress can happen when you're under pressure at work, and that's just, and it can happen without you realizing it. We don't even realize we're under stress at times.
Oh, and listen, I often, sometimes I'd be driving along in the car and I'd go, oh my God, like your daughter, I'm like, what's going on here? I've got anxiety. Where did that come from? And I have to kind of whoop back through the day to something or a comment or something, but I've been holding it in me on a physical level for hours, even though the thinking stopped, like, earlier in the morning or whatever. So yes, it's very physical.
Yeah, and I think as well, men, my dad, God love him, he was always a man's man. But I remember he said to me a couple of years before he died, we were chatting, he was a great man for the chats. And he said to me, Mags, if there's ever any stress in your head or in your body, go and talk to someone.
Oh my God.
I was shocked at him, because he was very much, a man's man. There was no bullshit, nothing,
That was pretty good advice right there. So last question, Mags. If fear was never, like, if there was no fear at all in your way, if it never got in your way, what would you do?
If I'd no fear, I'd jump out of a plane.
Okay.
I am afraid of it. Absolutely petrified of
it.
it.
But I still have jumped out of a plane.
Yeah,
It's not relative. When you get up that high, it's actually, you're so high up, whereas high up a ladder for me, or driving, and for some reason, I think I had a dream about this last night, that I was driving down a country mountain road, and it's like, oh, can't look down. But jumping out of a plane, you know, the ground was so far away. So
jump out of a plane. Well, I'd go back and finish my nursing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I started out doing, but and it was incredibly hard to get accepted because I had diabetes and they weren't taking on diabetics. But yeah, I loved it. But you know, there are things, and some would say you're still in the caring profession, Max. You know, maybe I am. But I do love what I do. I do love what I do. So I'm very privileged, I think, to be honest.
Know, it's never, there's always room for more. There's always more adventures. Yeah, and jumping planes and whatever. Max, thank you so much for coming on, and I appreciate you giving me your time today. And off you go now and enjoy the sunshine. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened in. And if anything in this conversation resonated with you and you are feeling stressed or fearful and you want to talk, then you're more than welcome to reach out to me, or as Max's dad would say, go and talk to somebody, but don't hold it inside you, because that's, you know, it serves no purpose whatsoever. And I'm going to put all Max's contact details in the comments box if anybody is looking for a little bit of help down the line in terms of their business and marketing strategies. So thank you again, Max, and thank you everybody, and see y'all soon. Bye.
Happy weekend. Bye.